Close your eyes and allow your body to settle completely. Let your shoulders fall gently and let your breathing find its own rhythm, slow and natural. There is no urgency, no expectation. The day has ended and the night opens like a safe and quiet space. As you listen to these words, you do not need to hold on to them or fully understand them. You can simply let them pass, like the distant sound of the sea. Tonight we travel far back in time to an ancient and silent world where stories were not told to teach, but to accompany rest. This is the story of Greek mythology, told slowly, like a whisper that can continue even after sleep has arrived. Before memory existed, before names or shapes were known, there was only chaos. It was not darkness or light, not emptiness or matter, but an undefined, deep, and eternal presence. Within chaos, there was no direction and no movement, no above or below, no beginning and no end. Everything rested in absolute calm, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. This state was not violent or disorderly in the human sense, but serene, motionless, and silent. And within that endless silence, something began to form, slowly and almost imperceptibly. From chaos emerged Gaia, the earth. She did not appear suddenly, but unfolded with infinite patience. Gaia was not only soil and stone, but the foundation of everything that could endure and remain. As she awakened, the first mountains rose gently, still young and smooth, without cracks or scars. Valleys opened quietly between them, and wide plains stretched out like a natural resting place. From Gaia also came the seas, deep and calm, moving without force, guided only by an ancient and steady rhythm. Rivers began to flow without yet knowing their destination, tracing silent paths across the land. The wind appeared as a continuous whisper, traveling freely over the newborn world. Gaia was alive, breathing slowly, yet she felt the solitude of a world just beginning. To ease that solitude, Gaia brought forth Uranus, the star-filled sky. Uranus rose slowly above the earth, vast and infinite, adorned with soft lights that would later be known as stars. Each night, Uranus descended over Gaia, covering her like a luminous veil, and in that quiet union, a new generation of beings was formed. From the meeting of earth and sky were born the Titans, ancient entities who did not think or feel as humans do, but embodied the fundamental forces of the world. They were time, memory, and natural law, living in a peaceful age where struggle and conflict were still unknown. Among the Titans was one who observed more than he spoke, one who seemed to listen to something the others could not hear. His name was Kronos. Kronos did not fear strength or destruction, but the unseen, what had not yet come to pass. A prophecy reached him like a distant echo, foretelling that one of his own children would overthrow him. The idea settled slowly into his mind, growing with time, until it became fear. And fear, even in the most ancient beings, can disturb the balance of the world. Each time a child was born, Kronos swallowed them, believing he could stop destiny itself. He did not act out of cruelty, but out of desperation, driven by the impossible desire to control the future. Rhea, his companion, watched in silence. Her sorrow was deep, but so was her resolve. When her final child was born, Rhea chose to break the cycle. In secret, she carried the child far from Kronos, to a cave protected by earth and silence. There, hidden from time and fear, grew the child named Zeus. Zeus grew slowly, nurtured by nature, accompanied by the murmur of the wind and the steady pulse of the world. While Kronos believed he had defeated fate, fate continued its path, patient and quiet, as it always does. When the time came, Zeus returned. He did not come driven by anger or revenge, but as part of a natural change that could no longer be delayed. Kronos fell, the Titans withdrew, and the world entered a new age. After this transformation, the new gods sought a high and peaceful place where they could exist, a realm removed from noise and the swift passage of time. Thus, Mount Olympus was born, a mountain wrapped in clouds, where time moves slowly and stories continue to unfold without urgency. Now, as these words continue to flow, your breathing has become deeper and calmer. The ancient world remains, but it asks nothing of you. The mountains, the seas, and the gods rest in silence, and you may rest as well. The story will continue to exist, even as sleep gently surrounds you, carrying you into a deep and peaceful rest. After the fall of Kronos, the world did not surge forward in haste. Change unfolded slowly, like the gradual shift from night to dawn. The ancient age of the Titans receded into quiet memory, and a new order emerged, not through violence, but through balance and patience. Zeus, now steady and fully aware of his place, did not rule with fear. He listened to the subtle rhythms of the sky and the earth, understanding that true authority rested in harmony rather than control. As he settled into this understanding, the clouds drifted calmly, the land found its stillness, and the seas returned to a gentle, breathing calm. Zeus gathered his brothers and sisters, those who had once been hidden away by time and now stood freely beneath the open sky. Together, they sought a place where they could exist without disturbing the fragile world below. High above the land, they found a mountain that rose quietly into the clouds, distant from storms and untouched by the hurried lives of mortals. This mountain became their home, a place where time softened and movement slowed. Here, the gods began to shape the steady, unhurried existence that would come to be known as Olympus. Upon Olympus, each god found a natural place, as if the mountain itself guided them. Zeus remained near the open sky, watching the slow passage of clouds and listening to the distant murmur of thunder that followed his thoughts. Near him moved Hera, calm and observant, embodying continuity and quiet order. Her presence was steady and reassuring, like a constant flame that never flickers. Through her, the rhythms of Olympus remained smooth and unbroken, allowing the gods to exist without discord. Beyond the heights of the mountain, the seas stretched endlessly, ancient and deep. These waters belonged to Poseidon, whose influence was felt in the slow rise and fall of tides. He did not rush or command the waves with anger. Instead, his power moved patiently, shaping coastlines over long ages, smoothing stone and carrying distant echoes across the water. When the sea was calm, it reflected the sky like a quiet mirror. When it moved, it did so with purpose, never hurried, never chaotic. Beneath the surface of the earth lay another realm, still and hushed. This domain belonged to Hades, a place not of fear, but of rest. Here, all journeys eventually came to a close, not abruptly, but gently, like the final note of a song fading into silence. Time moved differently in this hidden world, slow and weightless. Hades ruled without cruelty, understanding that endings were simply another form of balance, as necessary and natural as beginnings. As the gods settled into their domains, others took their places across Olympus. Athena moved quietly through the halls of the mountain, embodying calm thought and gentle wisdom. She did not seek conflict, but clarity, guiding the slow unfolding of ideas and understanding. Nearby, Apollo filled the air with soft music and light, his presence steady and warming, never overwhelming. His melodies drifted like sunlight through leaves, reaching without demanding attention. In the forests and along the edges of the world, Artemis walked in silence, protecting the quiet spaces where nature could exist untouched, her steps as light as the moon across still water. The world below Olympus continued to grow gently. Humans appeared quietly, learning to live beside rivers and beneath open skies. The gods did not rule them directly, nor did they constantly intervene. Instead, their presence was felt in subtle ways, in the calm of a clear morning, in the steady return of the seasons, in the quiet reassurance of fertile soil. Through Demeter, the land learned how to give and rest, how to grow and renew itself. Her influence moved softly through fields and valleys, guiding life without force. From time to time, the boundary between the worlds softened. In moments of stillness, mortals sensed something greater watching over them, not with judgment, but with quiet awareness. Stories began to form around fires at night, shaped by human voices, but echoing ancient truths. The gods listened without interference, understanding that stories were a bridge, connecting the fleeting with the eternal. Olympus itself remained a place of calm movement. Days passed like slow clouds drifting across the sky. Conversations unfolded gently, without urgency. Power rested like a sleeping flame, warm but contained. Even the passage of time seemed to slow upon the mountain, allowing each moment to stretch and settle. Now, as this ancient order rests in balance, your own breathing may feel deeper and more even. The steady rhythm of the gods mirrors the rise and fall of your breath. The mountain stands quietly above the clouds, the seas move in their endless cycle, and the hidden realms remain peaceful and still. There is nothing to resolve, nothing to anticipate. As the balance of the ancient world held firm, everything within it seemed to relax into its natural place. Time no longer felt like something that moved forward with intention. Instead, it flowed evenly, without pressure, like water spreading gently across a wide and open plain. Nothing in the world pushed or pulled too strongly. Everything existed as it was meant to exist, steady and untroubled, held together by a rhythm older than memory. High above the land, Olympus remained quiet and distant. Its presence was not imposing, but reassuring, like a constant shape on the horizon. Clouds wrapped around its peaks, softening edges and quieting sound. Light moved slowly there, never harsh, never sudden. The gods did not hurry across the mountain. Their movements were smooth and unforced, as though every step had already been taken many times before. Silence was common, but it was never empty. It was full of awareness, calm and complete. Thought itself behaved differently in this place. Ideas did not collide or compete. They appeared slowly, like shapes forming in mist, then faded just as gently. There was no need to choose between them. Understanding arrived naturally, without effort. Wisdom was not spoken aloud very often. It was simply present, woven into the quiet air, accessible without being demanded. Soft sounds drifted across Olympus, blending into the background of existence. Sometimes they resembled distant music, sometimes only the movement of wind across stone. There was no clear source and no clear end. These sounds did not ask to be noticed. They existed only to remind the world that it was alive, breathing in its own slow rhythm. Where they passed, tension eased without being addressed. Below the mountain, the natural world mirrored this calm. Forests grew steadily, ring by ring, year after year, never rushing toward completion. Leaves responded gently to the breeze, moving when moved, resting when stillness returned. Rivers followed their paths patiently, shaping valleys not in moments, but over ages. The sea rose and fell in long, measured cycles, its surface never truly still, yet never truly disturbed. Human life continued within this balance, shaped quietly by the world around it. People woke as light entered their shelters and rested when darkness returned. Their days unfolded slowly, guided by the land rather than by clocks or demands. Work was done without haste, pauses were taken without guilt, and rest was considered a natural part of living. At night, fires burned low, offering warmth without glare, and voices softened as sleep drew near. Stories were shared not to instruct, but to comfort. They were spoken slowly, often repeating familiar themes, allowing listeners to relax into what they already knew. These stories did not seek surprise. They offered reassurance, continuity, and a sense of belonging. Words drifted into the night air and faded gently, leaving behind a feeling rather than a message. Love, in this world, unfolded without urgency. It existed in presence rather than pursuit. It was found in shared silence, in familiar routines, in the comfort of another nearby. It did not demand expression, nor did it fear quiet moments. Connection was steady and patient, strengthened by time rather than intensity. In this calm age, closeness was something that grew naturally, without effort. Journeys were taken as part of life, not as interruptions. Travelers moved along paths that curved gently through the land, stopping when tired, continuing when ready. There was no sense of being behind or ahead. Each moment on the road was complete in itself. Pauses were as meaningful as movement, and arrival was never more important than the journey itself. Messages traveled between places without disruption. Transitions felt smooth and almost unnoticed, like drifting from one thought into another. Change happened quietly when it was ready. Nothing was forced to end before its time, and nothing was rushed into beginning. Everything unfolded in alignment with the larger rhythm that guided the world. As night deepened, the world softened further. Stars appeared one by one, steady and distant, offering light without demand. The sky felt wide and protective, stretching endlessly in every direction. Even uncertainty lost its weight, dissolving into the quiet continuity of existence. There was nothing to prepare for, and nothing to resolve. The moment, exactly as it was, felt complete. Now, as these words continue at their own unhurried pace, your breathing may feel slower, deeper, more natural. Each breath arrives without effort and leaves just as easily. Thoughts no longer need to follow any particular path. They can drift, pause, or fade entirely. The story does not require attention. It remains present whether you listen or not, steady and patient. Sleep approaches in the same way this ancient world moves, gradually, gently, without resistance.
As the ancient world continued in its quiet balance, stories of mortals began to unfold gently across the land. These were not tales of urgency or struggle, but slow movements through time, shaped by patience and acceptance. Human lives were brief compared to the eternal gods, yet they carried a depth of meaning found only in things that change. The gods observe these lives not with judgment, but with calm curiosity, allowing each path to follow its natural course. In villages scattered across valleys and coastlines, people lived close to the earth. They rose with the light, rested with the dark, and allowed the seasons to guide them. Days were shaped by simple rhythms, planting and waiting, walking and resting, speaking and listening. There was time for silence, and silence was never uncomfortable. It was understood as part of living, as necessary as breath. Journeys began without fanfare. A traveller might leave at dawn, not driven by urgency, but by a quiet sense of movement. Roads curved gently through hills and forests, never straight, never demanding speed. Along the way, pauses were common, a moment by a stream, a rest beneath a tree. These pauses were not interruptions, but part of the journey itself. The path did not rush the traveller, and the traveller did not rush the path. Encounters happened softly, a shared fire at night, a brief conversation beneath the stars. Words exchanged slowly, without expectation. Some meetings were remembered, others faded, yet each left a subtle trace, shaping the way forward without force. In this world, connection did not announce itself loudly. It arrived quietly and departed just as gently. Love, too, followed this unhurried rhythm. It was found in companionship rather than passion alone, in familiarity rather than intensity. Two people might walk together for a time, sharing silence more often than words. Their bond grew not through declaration, but through presence. When paths eventually diverged, the separation carried no bitterness. What had been shared remained complete, needing no continuation to hold its value. Even sorrow moved slowly here. Loss was felt deeply, but without resistance. Grief unfolded in waves, each one softer than the last. The world did not demand that pain be resolved quickly. Instead, it offered space, long nights, quiet mornings, steady days, allowing healing to occur naturally. Endings were not seen as failures, but as necessary pauses within a greater flow. Stories of heroes existed, but they were told without grandeur. Their journeys were described not as conquests, but as long walks through uncertainty. Strength was measured not by victory, but by endurance. Courage appeared as patience, as the willingness to continue without knowing the outcome. These stories were shared quietly, often repeating familiar moments, not to excite, but to reassure those listening. Dreams played a gentle role in this world. Sleep was seen as a doorway rather than an absence. In dreams, memories blended with imagination, and the boundary between mortal and divine softened. Messages were not spoken clearly, but felt. A sense of direction, a calm understanding. Upon waking, these impressions lingered like mist, guiding without demanding explanation. As night settled across the land, the world grew quieter still. Fires burned low, casting soft, steady light. Voices faded naturally, one by one, until silence returned. Above, stars held their places without movement, distant and constant. The sky felt wide and protective, embracing everything beneath it without condition. The gods remained present, though unseen. They did not intervene or command. Their role was simply to hold the balance, to allow the world to continue without disruption. They understood that life did not need constant correction. It needed space, time, and trust. And so they watched quietly, content to let existence unfold. In this stillness, time felt different. Moments stretched gently, blending into one another without clear boundaries. The past did not press forward, and the future did not pull ahead. Everything rested in the present, complete and sufficient. There was nothing to prepare for, nothing to resolve. Being itself was enough. Now, as these words continue to move slowly forward, your breathing may have settled into a deep, natural rhythm. Each inhale arrives softly. Each exhale releases without effort. Thoughts drift without direction, appearing and fading without attachment. The story does not require attention. It continues quietly, whether heard or not. Sleep deepens in the same way this ancient world moves, gradually, gently, without resistance. Awareness softens, edges blur, and rest spreads evenly throughout the body. There is no sudden transition, no clear moment of letting go, only a smooth descent into stillness. The ancient world stays calm and balanced, gently guiding you into deep, peaceful sleep, where rest comes naturally and without effort.
As the night reaches its deepest point, the ancient world settles even further into stillness. There is no sense of direction anymore, no forward or backward, only a quiet presence that surrounds everything equally. Time loosens its shape, becoming wide and gentle, no longer measured or noticed. The world exists without effort, and within it, everything feels held, supported, and complete. Across the land, movement slows to almost nothing. Paths rest beneath moonlight. Forests stand quietly, their leaves barely stirring. Rivers continue to flow, but their sound fades into the background, becoming part of the silence rather than interrupting it. Even the sea moves differently now, its waves stretching longer, softer, as if the water itself has begun to sleep. Human settlements grow quiet. Fires burn low, offering warmth without light. Breathing becomes the only rhythm that matters. The day has fully released its hold, and there is no need to remember it. Tomorrow does not ask to be prepared for. Everything that needed to happen has already happened, and everything else can wait. Stories no longer unfold in clear lines. They dissolve into impressions, into feelings without names. A sense of walking without destination. A memory of sitting beneath an open sky. The comfort of knowing that nothing is missing. These fragments drift slowly, blending into one another, forming a soft background that asks nothing from the mind. Dreams begin to appear gently, without announcement. They do not arrive as images at first, but as sensations. A feeling of warmth, a sense of floating, a calm awareness that moves without thought. Boundaries soften. The difference between listening and resting becomes less clear. The story no longer needs words to continue. The ancient gods remain present, though distant, not as figures or voices, but as balance itself. They do not watch, they do not act, they simply allow. Their role is complete, and so they rest as well, folded into the quiet rhythm of existence. Power dissolves into stillness, and stillness becomes the highest form of harmony. Nothing in this world resists the night. Darkness is not something to move through or overcome. It is a space to settle into, wide and gentle, like deep water that supports without pulling. Awareness drifts, not downward, but inward, toward a place where effort is no longer required. Breathing continues on its own. Each inhale arrives naturally, each exhale releases softly. There is no need to adjust it, no need to follow it. The body knows what to do. Muscles relax without instruction. Thoughts slow until they no longer connect into sentences. What remains is simple presence. Time stretches and thins. Moments blend together so completely that they lose their edges. There is no beginning to this rest, and no end. Only a continuous state of ease, where nothing interrupts and nothing demands response. The world feels distant, yet safe, as if wrapped in layers of quiet. If any thoughts appear, they drift like clouds, forming briefly and dissolving just as easily. There is no need to follow them. They pass on their own. The mind does not need to hold anything in place. Everything that matters is already supported by the calm beneath it. The story continues, but not as sound or language. It moves as a steady feeling, a gentle current that carries without direction. It does not ask to be understood. It does not ask to be remembered. It simply remains, constant and reassuring, like the rhythm of the night itself. Sleep deepens gradually. There is no clear moment when wakefulness ends. Awareness fades softly, like light dimming at dusk. The transition is smooth, uninterrupted, and natural. Nothing pulls you forward, nothing holds you back. The ancient world remains balanced and calm, holding everything gently in place. And within this quiet flow, rest becomes complete. There is nothing to do, nothing to become, nothing to resolve. Everything is already at ease. The night holds you without effort. The story fades without ending, and sleep continues, deep and peaceful, just as it should.
As the night reaches its quiet completion, the world no longer feels divided into moments. There is no sequence, no progression, only a steady state of calm that extends in all directions. The ancient world does not move forward or backward now. It simply remains, balanced and undisturbed, like a deep, still lake beneath a moonless sky. Nothing calls for attention. Nothing shifts suddenly. The land, the sea, and the sky rest together in a shared silence. Even the idea of distance softens. Near and far lose their meaning, blending into a single, peaceful presence. The world feels whole, not because everything is active, but because everything has settled into its natural place. The mountains stand quietly, unchanged and unchanging. The forests breathe in long, slow rhythms, their movement so subtle it can barely be sensed. Rivers continue their paths without sound, without urgency, flowing as they always have, unconcerned with time. The sea holds its gentle motion, not as waves, but as a deep, slow pulse that supports everything above it. Human life rests within this calm, no longer marked by thought or memory. There is no need to recall the day, and no need to imagine the next. The body exists comfortably within the present moment, supported by stillness. Breath flows evenly, arriving and leaving on its own. Muscles remain relaxed, held gently by gravity and rest. Thoughts no longer form clearly. If they appear at all, they do so faintly, without shape or direction. They do not connect to one another. They dissolve before becoming words. Awareness itself becomes soft, spreading evenly rather than focusing anywhere in particular. There is no effort involved in letting go. Release happens naturally. The ancient gods, if they can still be said to exist, do so only as balance, not as names, not as forms, not as stories, but as the quiet order that allows everything else to rest. They do not speak. They do not watch. Their presence is indistinguishable from calm itself. In this final stillness, even divinity fades into simplicity. Time thins until it can no longer be measured. Seconds lose their edges. Minutes blend together. There is no sense of waiting and no sense of arriving. The night stretches gently, without tension, without expectation. It does not move toward morning. It simply holds. Sleep deepens further, but without a clear boundary. There is no moment of crossing from one state into another. Awareness fades like light dimming gradually, so slowly that it is impossible to notice when darkness fully arrives. The transition is smooth, uninterrupted, and complete. The story no longer continues as narrative. It exists only as a quiet presence, a steady background that does not require listening. Words are no longer needed. Sound itself becomes secondary, blending into silence rather than interrupting it. What remains is a sense of safety, of being supported without effort. Nothing is required now. Nothing needs to be understood. Nothing needs to be remembered. The body rests because it knows how. The mind rests because it no longer needs to hold anything in place. Existence continues gently, without demand. If this moment were to last forever, it would feel natural. If it were to pass unnoticed, that too would be fine. There is no preference here, no desire for change. Stillness is complete in itself. The ancient world remains calm and balanced, not as a place, not as a story, but as a state of being. It holds everything gently, without pressure, without movement, and within this quiet holding, rest becomes effortless. Sleep continues, deep and uninterrupted. The night does not end. It simply remains wide and peaceful, allowing everything within it to be exactly as it is, and nothing more is needed.